7. Section I.
Section I.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very
section,
different.
section I, for me, is over on page 7I.
I think you
Are we
want-
looking, am I wrong?
It's on page 7 it's almost to the bottom of page 7.
What does it start off at? Site lighting?
It's a lighting plan.
A lighting
Is
plan?
section
Put that at
I.
number
Oh, that's 2. A lighting plan shall include? Is that where we're
No,
at?
no, number 3. Go down to number 3.
Lighting shall minimize sky glow.
Yes, and then if you go to B,
Big
On
foot
that.
candle values
Yes.
shall be 0.5 foot candles or less.
yes, ma'am.
Is that what you're trying to amend there?
Yes,
And what
I
do you-
would say
measured
directly after
vertically.
that, comma, as measured vertically, comma.
Oh, okay, having residential uses as measured vertically.
Yes. so
Is that
po-
the standard? I mean, really, I know it's not that big a,
So there were different, when I was researching, some municipalities just had one value, 0.5. Others had a horizontal and a vertical component of it. And then just empirically, when I went out, and then also we demonstrated here that you did get a slightly different value when you measured horizontally versus vertically, whereas the vertical value is generally larger. So if you measured vertically, the 0.5 foot candles, that would be a little bit more conservative as far as darkness goes. If you measured it horizontally, that same 0.5 might be
Gotcha, thank
0.3.
Two different.
2 different documents.
Yeah, 2 different pages, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I don't think it's a huge difference one way or the other from what we saw tonight, right? It's not a significant difference in the measurement, is there?
And it depends, and again, I give a big caveat that everything I did was with an app on my phone. Big caveat there, but but you did say, Wally, that you noticed a difference between the vertical and the horizontal as
It's
well?
about a 0.1 foot candle difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's not,
Well, that's 20, I mean, from 0 to 0.5, if you go down to 0.4, that's 20%. So it can be, you could tell a big difference. For instance, when I was under, and you could see kind of the rings of light as you went out from underneath a light, the difference between 0.5 and 0.4 was pretty substantial. It would be a difference between casting a noticeable shadow and, when we're talking small numbers, fractions of a whole going from 0.5 to 0.4 can be.
Did you measure this in your hand or on the ground, or?
I would measure it, again, my caveat, I would measure it, different locations, horizontal, a little bit higher and lower, vertical, kind of at eye level.
Yeah, because someone
Yeah.
could easily put it right on the ground and say they mean it, or, look, I have it here. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's subjective.
it is subjective. There's no measurement, we don't have any standard as to at what point it is measured and how it's measured. Is that something that most localities have in their lighting lighting
I've
ordinances?
seen,
or-
and I don't want to speak to all localities, this is all just what I've seen. I've seen some that say as measured vertically at eye level.
Well, that's what I mean,
Some
at
say
eye level,
that.
your eye level, my eye level, 2 different
Right,
things.
Why don't we say, like you do with trees a lot of times, you say 4.5 feet or, something
Plus or minus.
I'm
standard
good with
like
that,
that.
yeah.
I think
Four and a
it's,
half.
I don't want to belittle it, but I think it's a nit as far as we can put it in vertically and just go ahead and approve it. And if it becomes an issue, we'll look at it. No sense beating it to death.
No, but I still think if you're going to make this an ordinance, that there should be some standard that we go by, that it's measured at a certain feet, it's measured at, a certain distance, it's measured horizontally, and,
If you want to go in that direction, I think you just say something like
well,
Could be full moon, could
But
be
I-
half moon.
there you go.
I think
Come
that
on,
was the
it's-
clarification I asked.
It's going to be different, yeah. I mean.
I asked Wally the clarification earlier of what it was, and he said it was at the property line of the light that goes over.
Well, that's the physical location you measure at, but where do you hold the meter?
Right, the
when you're
meter.
measuring it? That's what they're getting at.
I just think if we're going to put that in the ordinance, that there should be a standard height of measurement if we're gonna put that in there.
Yeah.
What is the norm? I mean, what, the purpose of having this anyway? I mean,
Chest height, which for me would be about 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
For you, it might.
For me, I've always known it. I mean, I don't play around with it. My husband's an electrician, and so when he's done it, he's always done it chest height. I mean,
Yeah, don't make it, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Chest height would be fine. I think that'd be, vertically, we can do that.
chest height, I don't like that terminology.
Do you want to
It's
put a
too
foot?
subjective. It's too subjective.
Do you want to put a foot height?
Well,
Like at 5 feet?
Do we
4.5?
need to, well, and do we need that, to put that in there as measured vertically? Do we need that?
I
Or
personally.
why do you personally, why
I-
is it you really feel compelled to put that in there?
Because to me, there was a large difference between 0.5 foot candles and 0.4 foot candles and 0.3 foot candles. As the direction that your meter is facing really affects that. So you could be reading 0.4 foot candles horizontally, whereas that same vertical reading might exceed the half of a foot candle. For me, I think it's easy enough to just put some parameters in there for a measurement. Because kind of like what you were saying, you can go and measure it any which way. And I think having some parameters, how you're going to measure that, I think is helpful because it does give different measurements.
I think we need to, well, I don't know. I'm just not comfortable with putting something in there that we really don't know the effect of it, and we don't have the standard for the measurement, the height.
But according to research, other municipalities, you said it was split 50-50. Some of them did it horizontally, some of them did vertically, and some didn't specify at all.
And did they have any kind of height requirements on that, where it was taken?
Again, this is all just what I've seen.
No, and
Brandon,
I
but-
applaud you for all of
Yes.
your research.
So I've seen one bucket of municipalities that would say, for instance, 0.5 foot candles measured vertically, 0.3 measured horizontally. I've seen some that would say the eye level, that's where I got that, measured at eye level vertically. There were a lot of them that didn't have anything in there as far, it just said 0.5 foot candles, some said 0.2 foot candles. So it was a little bit all over.
What
But
would be the pros and cons of having it versus not, Wally?
Of having,
How we measure it, if we just left it alone without putting anything in there vertically, or at what height it's being measured, what?
I can see it both ways, but I think the argument of the vertical would be that when you're talking about a property line, you're not just talking about a line on the ground. You're actually talking about a line that goes up
Correct,
off the ground.
correct.
So measuring vertically makes some sense when you think about that. Now, I do think that if you're going to say vertically, you might as well say something like, I mean, eye level, everybody's eye level is different.
Right.
So if you want to say 5 feet or just, put something in there of that, I think that takes care of your concern that way.
I guess it was just, to me, it's so arbitrary that we're passing an ordinance to specify this, and it just seems very arbitrary to me. That we're holding someone accountable to this when it's really been done very arbitrarily. That's just.
And I don't think that's necessarily done arbitrarily, and I understand where you're getting at, the horizontal and the vertical, but to me, that gives a specific, here's how you take the measurement, here are instructions, and I think it takes away some of that. I think it makes it less arbitrary, so that you're not just sitting there holding your light meter any which way. It says, this is how we're going to take the measurement, and it standardizes those measurements, so that any city worker or anybody can then take the same light meter, and they can go and get a standard measurement.
And it should be at a standard height, because
So-
my height is eye level is
Exactly.
different than, anyone else's.
Yeah, so we could say 5 feet, 4.5 feet.
What
But
do you
there's-
think, Andy?
I mean, I would tell you, I absolutely would agree with Angie. I think putting that again, you can leave it open so that whoever is measuring can measure however they'd like to, but putting in the language that Angie is suggesting gives a more standard, you have to measure it this way. And it has to be at a, I mean, as Wally's saying, put in in addition to Ms. Emmett's language, put a height,
Yeah.
vertically at 4.5 or 5 feet, so that everybody's measuring
The same
at
thing,
the same spot generally, rather than, oh, if I move it over here
Exactly.
slightly or do horizontal and
Exactly.
up, then it, this way you have, this is how we're measured. Is it 0.5 or less, then we're good. If it's higher,
If we're gonna put that in there, I'm like, I think we should have a height standard.
Right, and not to complicate things, but Laura just reminded me of something that's very important. Every one of these light manuals come with their own owner's manual, which gives you instructions on how you take a light measurement. Different products may want you to measure it slightly different than other products because of the technology involved. So, keep that in mind also. That might not actually be an argument for not being as specific. I don't know, but that's up to the planning commission to.
I think my concern when we start getting into feet, eye level, chest level, 4.5 feet, 5 feet, I think we're pigeonholing ourselves, like we're drilling down into that rabbit hole, and without having anything to back up, I wouldn't want to assign a height. Like horizontal versus vertical, I mean, we could take it either way. Like, I tend to think that with the research Angie shared, there's a reason that we could pick horizontal versus vertical, but when we start talking about heights without seeing any research or anything to back it up, or an owner manual that says this is how you always do it, I think height is, firm as it is also subjective.
Yeah, I think what we'll find is based on different technology, there
That's a
may
good
be
point.
some height difference in how they want you to take it. I don't think we have a problem with vertically versus horizontally.
But let me ask you this, right, Wally, and the engineer in me is very, very much interested in this. I'm loving this discussion, so thank you all for this. A foot candle is a foot candle, yeah? So if you're measuring a foot candle, no matter what instrument it is, it should, if it's calibrated, if it's measuring a particular foot candle amount, a certain lux, then it should be calibrated that the actual lux that you're getting may be different if you hold it high or low or wherever. But if you had a calibrated meter, it should be reading, if it's in the same location, it should be reading the same foot candles. It would be
Regardless of
something
how
like
high
reading
or low.
pressure or something like that. It's not, if it's a calibrated one, depending on the tolerance of the machine, it should be reading the same amount at the same location.
I think that's true.
Well, I think that's correct, but I do think it varies, as you said. We saw it earlier with Wally, when he was moving that up and down, it makes a big difference
Right.
as to,
And he was saying that different owners' manuals seem
Right,
to measure
right,
it differently.
right.
But I'm saying that a foot candle is a foot candle in the same place, at the same location. They should measure the same. And
I just got, I mean, the site plan design is gonna, we don't have, putting up light. And designer knows the specification of the lights and the boundaries to put the lights in the places to abide by the ordinance. It's not like the lights and go off and take our measurements.
we're all gonna be buying these little pieces of equipment and going around like this.
I just think, and you had mentioned, I think previously, Libby, just having a mechanism to be able to verify in case there is a complaint.
Absolutely.
And someone says, oh my gosh, these are so much brighter than what's shown on the site plan. It's a mechanism that the city can then go and take a standardized measurement and say yea or nay. I thought this was gonna be the shortest meeting
Yeah, I know,
ever.
I'm sorry, but I just can't buy into that.
The thing that gets me is too, is if you got a full moon, I can see just about anything on a full moon, so what the heck? I mean, When you gonna make a measurement? Daytime,
Well-
nighttime? You did it in a black room here.
Well, according to the chart that I saw, a full moon gives out about .01 foot candle of
All
light.
right, that's funny, I can see quite a bit.
But I'm with you because on some full moons, you go out, I mean, it's practically silvery out there.
I
You
know.
really can see.
So I'm just saying, let's,
But .5 is not going to give you
Yeah,
complete
but let's
darkness. We demonstrated that today. It's-
see this depth.
I mean, do we put foot candle values should be 0.5 foot candles or less as measured according to instructions? It's getting down the rabbit hole.
But I don't think that the instructions will necessarily tell you where to,
Yes.
how high to
Right.
do it. And they could be for photographers. They might not necessarily be for municipalities.
So we just want to say as measured vertically?
For me personally, I would say as measured vertically at 5 feet.
If you're 4'7", that.
You're just gonna have to hold it up like you're at a concert.
Yeah, yeah.
that.
I just don't want us to put something in the ordinance that is so restrictive and, or ambiguous that it could be argued either way. It's like legal jargon, you read all this legal jargon and you're thinking, well, what are you saying here? I mean, it could be argued either way. And I just think that we need to, if we're gonna put an ordinance in place, then it should be specific enough that Wally could walk out there and say, sorry, or, hey, you meet it, one way or the other. And without that, then I do think it's just ambiguous. So, it's ambiguous, I guess, the way it is anyway, so.
From a
But it's
legal
not-
standpoint, does it hinder us by having it more specific? Or the broader it is, this, if something goes down 2 years from now, we're like, oh, this is what happened, this is what we learned, and now we need to change it?
I would say specificity is probably better because you know that you measure everybody the same way. You're not giving arbitrary treatment to one person over the next.
Do you know, Wally, what
Three,
the,
I don't know, but.
is there any standard, have you read any standard as to the height that they're taking at? Do you
I
know?
probably don't think a lot of people thought that much about this issue to really get into that. But if you want to put a height on it and say measure vertically, then,
And
that would be something very specific that I could act on.
But this is only, just to clarify, this is within the plans that have to be submitted. It's all done by the lighting engineers, that it has to be 0.5 foot candles. So really, this specific that we're getting to is if we get a complaint and we have to go out and assess. But everything really, I know the world's not ideal, but there's building, but really everything should be within this 0.5.
Everything should be. I mean, because that's the assumption based on the lighting plan that we're making and signing off on it. I mean, we're taking it in good faith, which we do. But we also want to know that it's prepared by somebody who knows what they're doing.
Wally, what is your feeling on this, a height requirement in addition to the 5?
I think that it does give us a, talking to the mic, I think it does give us a, something that's exact, that we can go out and apply equally to all people. I just, I do wonder if, we're gonna run into problems with some of the instructions on some of these instruments, although you know, I think as instrument works fine. I'm not looking to change anytime soon. But, you know, I really think it's just something that's up to the planning commission. If the planning commission feels more comfortable with giving me a standard that I can apply equally, and I think that's good.
Do you think 5 foot is a reasonable height? Is that,
Well, the only reason I said 4.5 feet before is that typically you measure the breast height of a tree,
Okay.
and at about 4.5, and that's how you
Okay.
determine the caliper.
well, I don't care what we put in there as long as it's some standard. And then if somebody comes in with a piece of equipment and says, well, this specific equipment states you must use it at 5 feet or 6 feet or 3 feet or whatever, then would you have the latitude to accept that? Less than what the ordinance is saying?
I think in that case, not to confuse this further, but in that case, you'd say 4.5 feet or as suggested by the manufacturer.
Okay,
That's like-
that sounds good.
Measure
You
vertical.
don't like
I-
that?
That's fine. I just, for me, a foot candle, it's like saying a pound is a pound. So if I have a pound up here and I have another scale that's calibrated, it should also measure a pound. And I don't know if the light meter instructions are necessarily,
I haven't seen anything that says
yeah,
anything about the
like a
height.
foot candle is if it's a measured value. So if it's a calibrated thing, it should measure this particular value. The amount of particles falling onto my hand should be the same no matter what instrument is measuring it. But I'm fine having that
Regardless of the
language in
height
there,
you're
too.
at?
No, but
So-
if you have two instruments at the same height.
Oh, agreed,
Then they
agreed.
should read this, no matter what their instructions say, they
Well, I got
should
you.
read
Yeah,
the
see,
same.
I agree.
Yeah.
Properly calibrated, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, that's true.
Where does the 4.5 feet come from?
I just
Standard-
mentioned
it's a
that because
standard
it's a
for measuring
standard for
trees.
landscaping.
Measuring trees.
So when you measure a
Caliper.
tree,
Yeah.
the caliper of a tree, so the diameter of a tree, it's normally at what's called breast height. And breast height is defined as around 4.5 feet.
That's
So
a
we were just
guideline that-
paralleling that,
Right.
But
that
that's
breast height.
a guideline that we could transfer over, because
Absolutely.
there was question about
Yeah,
not
I don't think
using
there's,
breast.
That- yeah.
yeah, no problem
I
with
think
that.
It's
that's,
a scientific measuring, it's a
Okay.
scientific measurement.
yeah. I would buy into that.
So,
So do we need another?
I would think there's a motion on the table, so whether or not we want to amend that motion, or if you want to proceed with your original motion.
I can make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor to
that works.
include 4.5 feet in addition to the 5. And, I mean, in addition to the vertically measured at 4.5 feet.
Do we need to have 2 seconds then, the original and the amended?
So I need a second.
I'll go ahead and second.
I didn't know how to term that, I apologize, sorry. All right, sorry. Commissioner Stevens,
Aye.
Commissioner Griebel,
Aye.
all right, Commissioner Bentley? Commissioner Salick? And Chairwoman Emmett.
Aye.
The motion for, the amended motion is approved.
This will go to the city council at their August meeting.
Yes. And I was just going to mention now, all of this discussion that we have is just for a recommendation for some verbiage, and then it goes to city council to.
And they can take it all out if they want.
Yeah, yes, yeah, they have the final say. So very good. That was a great discussion. We'll go ahead and move on to communications. Wally, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, one thing I'd like to add is that we've got this wonderful opportunity to attend the 2022 annual conference of the APA Virginia. It is conducted at the Richmond Marriott downtown. I'm assuming that within commuting distance. I want to point out that Planning Commissioner, if I know by June 30th, the early bird fee is free.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't cost anything.
Would you like me to pass the information down?
I've only got one copy. I did email, I think I emailed you all a copy of this. Some of the courses look pretty interesting, when you settle down into them.
I think
You
it's
can
a
go
whole
for
pack.
one day, or you can go for the whole
It's a whole
thing.
package.
Oh, yeah, it's just the flyer.
Where is it held? I'm sorry.
I checked
Richmond.
Marriott
In
and
Richmond.
Richmond.
Now, I did see that that was the same time that if we do have a July meeting, that it would be the same time. Do you know if we're planning on having a July meeting?
So far, no. But I'll stay in touch with y'all. We don't have any applications so far.
That would be
I
helpful.
think the deadline's pretty much passed too,
Okay.
so. We'll give planning commission a break on looking at ordinances for a month.
And then we'll go to the planning
Yeah.
conference.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other, go
I
ahead.
think that's his own. Yeah.
Laura, do you have anything?
No, not at this time. I appreciate it.
Libby?
Good.
Thomas?
Fine.
Christie? I don't have anything else. I went ahead and registered for that. I'm not sure if work will allow me to go, but I'm hoping to go up Monday morning and then maybe get a room and stay. One topic that I saw in there that I am very interested in is getting municipalities getting infrastructure money.
Oh, yes.
Getting them money? Is that what
Getting,
you said?
yes, new infrastructure bill money. Yes, so, okay. And all that being,
Next month, yeah, the next meeting.
I think next month we're going to have
Yeah.
elections.
Okay, just want to make sure we didn't blow that one off.
Yes.
And you said it's going to be occurring, though, at the same time as this conference?
If we have a July meeting,
Yeah,
that would
which
occur.
I'm thinking we will not have.
Will
one,
not?
Because I
Okay.
think the deadline's already passed.
Okay. With that, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.